All right. Uh-oh. Our microphones are not working. This one isn't. Oh, there we go. All right. Hello, everyone. Hello, every two people today. Welcome to the February meeting of the City of Binghamton Planning Commission. My name is Nick Corcoran. I'm currently the chairman of this commission, which is comprised of local community members tasked with reviewing site plans and special use permits for consistency with the standards and criteria set forth in the City of Binghamton Code. Based on our total number of planning commission members, 4 members must be present to constitute a quorum. Tonight we have 7 members, which means we do have a quorum and can proceed. First item on our agenda is roll call. Mario DeFulvio, Joe D'Angelo, Chris Judge Eats.
Here I am, rock you like a hurricane.
Thank you for doing that into the microphone, especially. Kelly Weiss,
Complete the rest.
Manny Priest,
Here.
and Steve Seeprasad. All right. Second item on the agenda, I don't think we have any minutes to approve. So nothing on base camp, right?
There were some from December, I think.
All right, December meeting minutes. I must have missed those. Anybody have any concerns, questions about the meeting minutes? Want anything changed? And if not, is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
All right, motion by Chris, seconded by Steve, all in favor? All right, 7 in favor, 0 opposed. All right, next item on the agenda are secret determinations. In this portion of our meeting, the Planning Commission will be reviewing documentation provided by applicants for the first time. Applicants will be called to the microphone where they will be asked to make a presentation describing their plans to the commission. Commission members may then ask questions of the applicant to clarify any items that are unclear. After all questions have been answered, the commission will deliberate and then either set a public hearing date for the project or request additional information before proceeding. To all applicants that would be presenting tonight, we ask that you please state your name and address for our records before beginning your presentation, and ask that any member of your team who will be speaking, please give their name and address for our public record. So tonight, our first secret determination is for the applicant, Chinas and Anderson Architects. Project address is 89 Court Street, and this is a site plan review and special use permit for the conversion of floors 2 through 4 of an existing commercial building to 9 dwelling units with 18 total bedrooms.
Jeffrey Smith, Chanis and Anderson, 31 Front Street, Binghamton, 13901.
All right. Yep.
Kyle Weeks, Chanis and Anderson, 31 Front Street, Binghamton.
All right.
So this is the second potential new purchaser of the building we've worked with. We started in June through the application process through you folks. Then they went a different direction. We're reusing a lot of the building as it exists now.
I'm sorry, we can hear you, but if it's not in the microphone, the recording won't pick it up.
Gotcha. Okay, sorry about that. We are reusing a lot of the existing building on the 2nd floor through the 4th floor. Trying to work with the existing stairs and elevator to put a different use in the building. It is vacant except for the 1st floor now. 4th floor is completely gutted. And we're looking forward to moving this project along with the new purchaser at this point. With 3 units per floor, 2 bedrooms, they are still decently sized units. We're not cramming anything in. And like I said, we're going to maintain the elevator in the 1 existing stair that is there now. Part of the scope of the work is some exterior because this is eligible for historic preservation tax credits, and that's going to be an important part of funding the project. We understand that work would be an administrative review through COD at this point because the building was restored in the 80s and has been reasonably maintained. So it's in pretty good shape, a little bit of painting, repair, some awnings, some lights and that sort of thing. And on the interior, the finishes, fit and finish for the units are to be determined at this point. But we laid out some plans that allow the bedrooms to have windows, which is part of the building code. And the systems in the building are going to be used as much as possible, the sprinkler and the electrical. Some of those things don't exist anymore, so the mechanical and fire alarm will need to be upgraded.
All right. Any questions, comments, concerns? Chris?
Can you speak to us about the garbage plan?
I couldn't remember what your standard question was. So
The parkings are, but this is a question about, not about parking.
that was what I was lipping to you when yes. So there is no surrounding property for this building, so we have a plan to store the garbage for the tenants on each floor adjacent to the elevator. And then building systems person will have to bring that down for the weekly collection.
Tito, is that sufficient for planning department concerns?
I think it's up to the commission if you're satisfied with that. Is that, will you have a private hauler or where will the garbage be placed on pickup day?
I don't have that information at this point. I would assume we could use city services when you come by, I think on Wednesdays, I believe. There would be no outside storage. So it would be stored in the building and then hauled down those days.
I think we should know where the garbage is going to be stored.
Yeah,
And everybody has access to the floor plans that we included with the application. If you look at the last page of the drawings, we do have an elevator shaft shown that's existing. Adjacent to that, we have a designated room on each floor for tenant garbage and recycling, we hope, storage.
I'll speak to, we found in the past that putting it out to the curb is it just doesn't, it's not a great thing for the city. It gets spilled around and with a building as big as that, we have problems with pests and things getting in and it's sat for a week and then it's coming down and just is there any place you guys could put some sort of a dumpster? That would be something that would be important to us. Don't mean to speak.
My understanding was that we would need to negotiate with somebody else in the area who has property to put a dumpster at this point. In a commercial alley, I don't know about
Stuff,
that, around the parking garage, that's
Yeah.
potential. I understand your concern.
Yeah.
And even if it was a private hauler, it still would have to get down and out to the curb. So I can't answer that right now, but we can certainly follow up with that with the new potential owner.
Chris?
Referring to the architectural plans regarding the garbage storage per floor. I'm seeing near the elevators, there's something labeled tenant storage. Is that one of those supposed to be the proposed temporary garbage place? I was thinking like one like directly like I'll call it like up north from yes, those are the two I'm seeing. Is that the vision? Or is there something else on the floor plan that I'm missing?
Yes, correct. There is one adjacent to the elevator labeled tenant storage. That's what that would be, is what we're planning at this point. The other one would be tenant storage for bicycles, that sort of thing.
It might be useful before you guys come back for the public hearing, if this might be updated with a more explicit, garbage holding for tenants or something like that.
Is there a, excuse me, is there a service elevator? Because I'm just picturing you dump the garbage in this storage area and then it's being taken down in the same elevator people are using to go up and down. So here I am, I'm coming home with groceries and I'm in the same elevator as somebody that just had garbage, which seems nice and disgusting.
It's going to require some detail, correct? There is not a service elevator. The building is not large enough to do that. And that would certainly make the project very unaffordable at this point. Adjacent surrounding this building is another housing project, University Lofts. They have a couple elevators, but they do the exact thing. They have one central garbage storage room on Commercial Alley that then gets collected by a private hauler. So very similar, to that. but they have had challenges as well with the leaking cans and things.
A different question, going back to the drawings. I saw there was grayed out near the stairwell. It's labeled a decommissioned elevator shaft. What is the status and what's going on with that elevator shaft?
We believe when the building was built that that was the elevator for the department store and the architect slash resident who lived on the top floor. It is no longer there and it does not go to the basement. It's been severely altered. And it's filled with some electrical services and some other things like that. We thought about maybe that being a garbage chute, you know, possibly. Still, then it's got to go to the basement, but then I guess only come up one level. Details to be determined. But what we understand here, yeah, you're concerned. And so this is Isaac Perry building, the capital of the architect of New York State. And when he retired, he built the building, built the building and resided here on the 4th floor. We cannot find any drawings or details or anything on this building at all, which just seems kind of odd for someone with that background.
All right, any other questions, comments, concerns? All right. If there's nothing else, I'll make a motion that the proposal involves the reuse of an existing commercial building, which is a type 2 action, and no further environmental review is required. All right, second by Steve, all in favor? All right, 7 in favor, 0 opposed. And I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing for the project at 5:25 at our March meeting. All right, second by Manny, all in favor?
Here.
7 in favor, 0 opposed. All right, so we'll see you back in March.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, follow up with us and we'll make sure we answer them for the next meeting.
All right. All right, well, that concludes seeker determinations for the night. So we're now on to no public hearings or final deliberations, which brings us to other business. And the first item on that is the climate action plan.
Yeah, if you want to suspend the rules to shift the amenity space agenda item up one, I can do that while she sets up.
Okay. Do
You-
you need a motion to do that or?
Yes,
I'll make a motion to alter the rules to talk about the amenity space amendment before the climate action plan. Second by Steve, all in favor?
Aye.
7 in favor, 0 opposed. All right, take it away, Tito.
so last year, you may remember, we had this proposed legislation to prohibit basement party rooms. That worked well. There were a couple projects that had these party rooms that had to readjust their plans to get rid of them. So it worked fine, but somebody found a loophole and tried to propose very large storage rooms in the basement that were most likely going to be party rooms. So the building department asked us to amend it to put specific occupancy limits on the different types of amenity spaces to prevent that. And that's all this does. It just clarifies the existing rule.
All right. And you need a motion tonight for,
Yeah, we're looking for a vote to recommend approval or denial or approval with conditions of the amendment. I think Joe's got a question.
Just looking at that regarding the trying to specify the number of persons in a specific area. Would that be of any risk to the people who legislate that if they specify 100 people on a certain area and the building might not structurally be has anyone looked at this compared to, are we using the 2018 IRC or what's our code, the building code? Or
It is the
16.
International Building Code. Yeah, that's where they got
IBC.
the numbers. Yeah.
There's certain, in the IBC, there's certain pounds per square foot of floor, per floor area. And it, in order to not be liable, if someone put 100 people in a room that may have not had a good floor, I thought if you added some words that would make the person applying have an engineer look at it, it might discourage them from wanting to do big areas because they have to spend money to have it looked at by a structural engineer.
This is
Foresee
going,
that?
by the time this is under review, this will have, this will be for projects that are being proposed, and those projects will have design professionals on board already.
Okay,
So, so the stamped plans that get submitted will have to meet this code. So, presumably that their engineer or architect will have
okay.
taken that into consideration. And these are caps on the number of people. And just looking at the numbers, I think the caps are pretty low. So you're not going to have, I don't think, a lot of people in these rooms. Does that,
Yeah, as long, if the cap times the design weight of the typical person comes up less than the floor loading, and that could even be a one-time look by someone in the engineering department. Say, hey, by the way, do these numbers match the code? And it wouldn't have to be talked about after. You wouldn't have to put that on the shoulders of the person applying, but just as long as someone had verified it met the code loading requirement.
Yeah.
Then that's fine.
yeah, anything that's being looked at, to have this rule applied to it will be something that's going for building permits, and that review will be happening anyway.
Then
Yeah.
it should be fine.
All right. Anybody else?
I love this amendment because I strongly dislike party rooms.
All right. Chris is in favor of a motion to approve with no changes. All right. Are we ready to go forward? Anybody else? All right. Have at it, Chris.
I'll move to approve the amendment as presented.
All right. Recommendation
Recommendation
to approve
to approve.
as written. Great. All right, second by Steve, all in favor? 7 in favor, 0 opposed. All right. So that concludes that item. And we got to get Julia a microphone for sure.
Hi. Sorry, I had a lovely presentation, but technical difficulties. I left the HDMI cable upstairs, so we're just gonna go with it. So I hope everybody had a chance to review the climate action plan that I sent out. There are a lot of typos. I apologize. I thought they'd all been corrected, so that I'm aware of. I'm hoping I also sent the greenhouse gas inventory. And that was uploaded? Okay, good, good, good. Okay, so well, let me just flip through all of this. So what I wanted to do tonight was just kind of explain to you a little bit about our process, what we did. I'm asking for, the planning commission to send me comments. And if we need a recommendation for the city council to adopt the plan. So, if there's, substantial changes or comments, we can either, recommend approval with those being corrected, or I'll come back next month and go that way. So, well, I am sad I don't have my presentation, but, on the first page of our new draft plan, which was based on the 2011 Climate Action Plan, so we went through all of the action items and objectives from that plan. We, tracked what we had met, what we didn't meet, and we set up goals to then meet those that are still in progress. And we had a new greenhouse gas inventory conducted based on 2022 data to show what we've achieved. Then we looked at the New York State Climate Action Plan to make sure that what we're doing tracks what the state is doing. So all of those documents we use to create the new one. So this is an update to the existing plan. It's not a replacement. So on the, if you have your plan with you, it's really hard to read. We have a timeline that has been updated. The original timeline, well, it began in 1992 with a Rio Earth Summit, but I'm not going to go through all of that. But the original action plan had indicated that by 2025, they'd wanted the city to have show a 25% greenhouse gas reduction. And then they gave us all the goals and objectives to do it. So our greenhouse gas inventory showed a 52% reduction. And that's combined total. It was about 51.7% reduction for government and a little bit over 52% on the community side. So we've achieved that ahead of schedule. And here, I'll hold it up. So based on the previous plans, goals and objectives, kind of joking, and what the state said, we've gone and created a plan based to continue with that. But I wanted to go over tonight a little bit. It might be hard to do without the overhead. The goals that we didn't meet. I can't even read it, but I have all of these slides and I can show you. They're yes. Thank you. I'm sorry, I cannot see a thing. All right. So press up and down, you can use two fingers to make it. It doesn't have my. It doesn't have the tracking documents. I'm sorry. Yeah, these things. I'm gonna send them. Nope. No, that's okay though. But thank you. Thank you. But I can tell you, under the buildings and energy section of the 2011 plan, the areas that we are having progress right now we met all three objectives. 3 of the actions we didn't implement. We are replacing them with things that will meet those. So we have adopted, met the objectives, but we just have different actions that we're using to achieve some of the action items. That makes sense. But we did hit all of the objectives for all of them. The transportation and land use, we've hit the objectives of that, which were reducing transportation, I really just can't read it. Sorry. Basically, we have met all of the objectives of the different categories for the original plan. And we're going beyond that. So what I really was hoping is to review the goals of our document, but I'm going to discuss the greenhouse gas inventory too. 1 second, I'll get to that. So the new challenges and opportunities that we identified through the greenhouse gas inventory, we could see where we had a lot of success and where we didn't achieve as much as we had hoped. Under buildings and energy, the municipal buildings need to be more energy efficient. So we're working right now to have a energy manager in place for the city. So hopefully we can hit those targets next go around. Under transportation and urban planning, we hit the goals and we have a few additional that we want to build from. Waste management, reduction and recycling. We're shifting that a little bit from recycling is really established now. So we're looking at reuse and we're going to push reuse a bit more. Local food, agriculture, and land use is where we have a lot of changes. So the moving forward section is on resilience. So the former plan didn't really focus as much on what to do when a disaster hits and how do we prepare the community for it. It had a lot of ideas on how to try and address the issues, but we got a little more specific with this plan. We know we've already flooded. We're a flood-prone community. I pulled a flood history with the help of our historic planner. And our community has flooded so often that in 1939, we qualified for flood mitigation measures, the flood walls and the earthen berms. And that's the protection we still have in place. However, we've continued to flood even with that in place. So that's being reviewed right now, whether or not we have enough containment for that. So what we need to do is reduce the amount of flooding, floodwaters running off into the rivers. And so that's where our land use has really changed a bit in our new goals. But what I was hoping to show you was just how well we did. This is our municipal inventory. You know, you can't see it, but this looked at every department in the city in terms of natural gas use, vehicle miles traveled, the building, gas and electricity use. And we have individual scores, actually individual tonnage for each one of those categories. That is in the greenhouse gas inventory, but you can see we need to increase our electric vehicles. We only have 2 in our department. So that's helps us to target where we need to expend money. Okay. The community inventory, we showed a reduction in everything overall, residential, natural gas and electric, landfill waste. Yeah, so we hit all of those, but we did have a 52% reduction in general. So what I'd like to do now is hopefully kind of discuss what we found to be the crucial part of our plan to address. We had 2 public meetings and we held 2 tabling sessions over the summer. We got a lot of public input. We have a whole section on community outreach, but what it identified were the concerns that we're all familiar with. Flooding, extreme storm events, extreme heat, and equity considerations. So one of the new categories we're bringing in is wildfire. I'm sure you've noticed that. We had a few questions about it that we're putting under extreme heat. You know, as the temperatures increase and our weather patterns change, we're more susceptible now to wildfires. But we've always had a plan in place to some extent for fires, not for the smoke. So the summer when we had the smoke situation from the Canadian fires, we did receive calls from the public. What do we do? How do we handle this? I had 3 calls. I called the county and they said, we're turning off the air exchange. And we're just gonna have, you know, because it was increasing the smoke within the building. Though there was no plan, there was no safe room for people to go to. We have places for extreme cold, extreme heat, shelters for that. We had nothing for people to go to if they had no way to escape the smoke. Nothing had been set up. So that's part of our plan is we want to address this separate part of wildfires. Because that can't be, you can't block it. Okay, so I hope you had a chance to read through all of the goals. I know we have a lot of them. I'm just going to kind of gloss through them a little bit. And what I'm hoping is if I left something out, you tell me and we could add it back in or expand. So under the recommended actions, we're looking at having a net zero carbon and energy efficient city facilities. So the city structures themselves. So that means producing energy as much as we use to create a net zero balance with that. And the next goal is we want to support a net zero carbon and energy efficient community. So to attempt both of those, we're applying for grants to make our structures more energy efficient. the less energy we need to use, the easier it'll be to meet those needs with renewable energy. The city of Binghamton already runs on 100% renewable energy purchased through energy credits. We need to be able to produce them on site as well. And we're working, right now we have a funding ability for residents to apply, low moderate income residents to apply for energy efficiency upgrades, including heating, cooling, all electrical appliances for kitchen, bathroom, laundry facility. But we need to put more money into enabling people to put solar panels on the roof. We need to be able to produce more. So those are two of our big goals. And the way we're going to meet those is primarily through grants. And there's a lot of funding that's available through the state, and there's more coming to do just that. Right now, the encouragement is to transfer to electricity, but the electricity production is not keeping up with the needs, so the rates are increasing. So we need to encourage and do what we can to produce more. Okay. And those are very lofty goals, but we can do it. We're already 52% less than where we were in 2006, you know. Okay, the transportation and land use category. We're looking at, if I can read this. This is embarrassing. Reduce transportation emissions through increased city walkability, electric vehicle charging station support, and providing municipal employee incentives to use alternate transportation. Let's see. The second goal is to reduce consumption of fuel for transportation and municipal government operations. This is by increasing the number of vehicles we have that are all electric. You know, garbage trucks, fire trucks, police cars. So those are the vehicles that use the majority of fuel. Those are also extremely expensive to replace with electric vehicle alternatives. There's a lot more individual vehicles for supporting departments, $25,000 to $30,000 per electric vehicle. So it's kind of a trade-off. We'll either start replacing the higher use vehicles, I guess, and then work our way down to the smaller use. But we have some grants that we could apply for in terms of that. We're also looking at providing employee incentives, virtual meetings where practical instead of vehicle use, just reducing the amount of vehicle use. So we're creating plans for all of those. Reducing consumption of fuel for transportation and our government operations. We learned a lot from COVID. You know, you don't attend conferences in person unless you're presenting, just really restricting your exposure. So we have a lot to build from there. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so those were, yeah. Moving on to material management, reuse and recycling. Reducing landfilling by increasing recycling and reuse. One of the things we'd really like to do with that is provide a bulky item pickup day where you put large items out and people can just drive by and, you know, we can put large items out right now on every trash night, but if we have a specific day of the month, it's easier for people to kind of just go picking. It's been really effective in St. Louis and a couple of other communities, but that was just one of the thoughts to do that. Let's see, we're also looking at, I can read this. End of month community picker weekends, a program for curbside take it or leave it of reusable household items, providing recycling services to the school district, to Binghamton University, to Broome Community College campuses, and buildings located within city boundaries that have to provide their own garbage pickup. So this would put more of a burden on the government, including extra cost. It's a goal. But the more simpler we make it, the more likely people will recycle and will capture a higher rate. Okay, diverting other types of waste from the landfill. Let's see. Oh, the county has been interested in the past with composting from residences. So we've looked at a coordinated program that would start with restaurants. We've had success having spent grain collected from breweries or actually donated to farms, so pig farms. So we already have a process in place we can model it on. The municipal participation in the Western Central New York Materials Exchange website. I don't know if you've been to it, but there's a website where you can list what you have that you want to trade, and you can go through and identify other items that you would like to use. And then we'd like to incorporate green procurement within the city procurement purchasing. Okay. I'm trying to skim through it quickly. And then under agriculture, urban forestry, and open space, our goal is to support the expansion of urban farming and community gardening. We want to build on, we have now, the vines, and continue that success. Coordinate with, our economic development office for support of agricultural services and businesses, enabling people to have a little agricultural site and sell on site with some support. Let's see. Okay. Adopt a community food system law that recognizes farmers markets and minor farmers markets as land use classifications for composting as an accessory use and allowing beekeeping as an accessory use. Let's see. Okay. The second goal for this category is increasing carbon sequestration through our urban forestry and an open space conservation, preservation, and expansion. Replacing tree loss on public property following municipal tree management plan, which we do now. Continuing expansion of the tree canopy throughout the city is one of the actions. And I'm not sure if we can do this, but adopting an open space ordinance to allow for open space districts to be developed to preserve the existing open space that we have. Let's see. And that would involve an open space inventory. So, and then creating an open space management plan. So if we can't adopt it as an ordinance, I'm not sure if we can. We can have a plan in place to protect and manage it. Let's see. If there's any questions, comments, okay. All right, let's see. Yes, ma'am.
One of the things I know that happens when we're transferring into a usage of in different cities and with the grid systems with a lot more electricity and whatnot is the grid system you talk about. It doesn't just have to expand, it has to have some backups and it has to have a lot of cybersecurity. And I don't see those things mentioned in here. And I know that that's a very huge downfall that is a critical issue in the country right now that we aren't looking into. It won't work without that.
Yeah, okay, if you have anything written, you want to email it to me?
Yeah, I will,
That'd be great.
definitely. So, and I know some experts in the field who could consult with you I'm sure that they would love to speak to you about it, but it's just really the attacks on our grids. You don't think Binghamton's a big place, but we're getting bigger and bigger.
Mhm.
And if we switch to something like that, it's real quick to shut it down unless we don't have some securities in place. So
Yeah.
that's a thought.
Okay, you got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, okay. So,
You want to wait till the end, Chris, or?
no, go right ahead. No, I'm just trying to get my pages in order.
Dr. Billing, I got numerous concerns.
Okay.
If you want to flip in your hymnals to page 6-4, I have many concerns about the transportation and land use
Mhm.
goals and commentary.
Okay.
As a start, I guess I'm always nervous that when I hear phrases like smart growth and complete streets,
Mhm.
what that often translates into is hostility to cars. And
That's a
while it-
transfer of focus from car-based to allow other forms of transportation. There will still be vehicles. They just won't be the primary point of planning, but the streets are already here. So
Okay, well, on behalf of all the automobile owners in the city, I'd like to caution us against doing things like eliminating parking requirements
mhm.
and making planning decisions that would make our elderly population, for whom walking and biking may not be a realistic option,
Mhm.
or for almost everybody during inclement weather. This isn't Arizona. And I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that I'm not sure if our residents have voted for decisions to make Binghamton car unfriendly. So I would just be very cautious that some of the things that are listed here under the various 2035 goals and recommended actions need to be vetted properly to make sure that they're, regardless of whatever our climate goals are, that they're also realistic for our population.
Right.
That's
So under point 3 for transportation land use 3.4, where it says eliminate parking requirements, that's a recommended action. So this is a discussion I wanted to have. How would you prefer to eliminate, rewrite that, something to?
I
replace-
wouldn't eliminate them.
No, I mean, eliminate that one, that action.
Oh,
I can cross it right out.
I mean, personally, if I was drafting this, yes, I probably would not have included 3.4.
Okay.
But I'm one person out of 7 on this commission, so I don't want to claim to speak for anybody else. And also, I think even going to 3.1, complete streets and smart growth policies,
Mhm.
without that being spelled out, I'm not sure if I'm be willing to sign off on unspecified complete street and smart growth policies if I don't know what those are going to be.
So we
Um,
would develop a complete street policy. We have one, I believe. It's a little older. We would develop a smart growth policy as well, and then send it through for review and approval. So I can modify this to say, review. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Under 3.5,
Mhm.
that we want to identify areas and develop a policy for establishing car-free streets.
Mhm.
Again, I'm curious if the average Binghamton resident wants car-free streets. If that's a goal that they would want to see implemented, possibly to their detriment.
If we do a review of all the streets, there are some streets that aren't conducive to vehicles already. Trying to remember, is it Prospect that runs between the bus station and the back of Atomic Tom's? That's a street right there. If that's turned into pedestrian with access for the buses to come out, it would reduce the impact right there. We'd have to have an access from either into the parking lot, which is owned by one person. So we could have an entrance in and entrance out for the structures on, what is that, State Street. So it would be limited to reduce primarily pedestrian. That's what we had in mind for car-free streets, just looking to see where it would fit. Gorgeous Washington Street was a pedestrian area only years ago. It would be easy to convert that back, at least the upper half of it, after the parking garage. Drop off deliveries and then cart by hand truck, have that just open to pedestrians and other uses. So by that, it would mean reviewing all of the roads, all of the streets, and see which ones are conducive to this. And by car free, it could be car limited, car restricted, emergency access, handicap access only. However you'd like it worded. So, but the point is to change the emphasis from vehicles as the primary and only form of transportation. Streets that are pretty much too narrow to be two-way, could be one-way. That's a limited access. That's not a car-free street, but is reducing transportation on that by vehicles only. The complete street programs are, something that we are kind of looking at, and we have a few in place. Those by complete, you know what it means, right? Okay, you're just turning, you're enabling the safe additional use of the streets by bicycles, by pedestrians, and by vehicles, not by painting bike lanes, or putting diamonds in the middle of a street where you have a shared road, but by expanding sidewalks, expanding space, and narrowing vehicle lanes. And of course, putting green infrastructure in, trees, benches, lighting, similar to what we did on State Street, what's going to be happening on Washington Street as well. But if you want to, honestly, this is what I need. So-
And to use the examples of Washington State Street that you're drawing out,
Yeah.
I hate those things. And if maybe I'm the only person who's gonna say those things are terrible. I don't want that expanded in the city.
Okay,
Those kind of complete street things that this is suggesting to be implemented, boo.
okay. Will you send me an email? And
Sure, I can do that. Yeah.
Right. That sounds good.
One last thing while we're still on the same page,
Mhm.
2.2. Requiring virtual meetings where practicable. I have a severe reservation about that as well. I understand the desire to allow for virtual interactions, putting things on YouTube, allowing people to do Zoom calls. But to require virtual meetings, which to me means at some point in the future, residents and constituents can't come in person and look a bureaucrat in the face. I find that very dystopian. I don't want people in City Hall hiding behind screens. I want them
No.
accessible to the public, face to
Yeah.
face and in person.
Absolutely.
So allowing for virtual meetings is one thing. Requiring virtual meetings, I think, is a dangerous direction to go down.
Where practicable. That was the big difference.
Yeah, well, I'm focused on the verb require.
If we change it to apply to mostly city employees, municipal employees, if you can have a Zoom meeting instead of driving, you do it. You could have a vehicle mile limitation. I know I worked for federal government. We couldn't fly anywhere if we could drive there within an hour. So if we put similar types of restrictions, if you can Zoom instead of driving 10 minutes, do that, something like that. But these are recommended actions, but to meet them, I need more wording. We can take out required easily and just have it as virtual meetings where practicable instead of vehicle use. I miss having the public come to these meetings, since COVID the seats are empty. They're now, they are for COD. They are for COD. Some of the meetings they still are. I'm glad to hear that. But the whole point of this one right here was to make it part of city policy or municipal policy to limit people leaving and going to meetings if you could do it in person, not to restrict the public from coming in. So again, if you have a better way to accomplish that or rephrase this,
Julia, could you talk about, kind of what Chris is saying? So any of the things that are in this, that they're just goals. They
but
would
yeah.
obviously, if they were to become
right.
a complete streets plan or whatever,
Right.
it would come in front of us before anything ever
Exactly.
became an actual.
These are
actual
2035 goals with recommended actions to achieve those goals.
So the goals are just giving you a way to promote programs, to seek funding
Yep.
because they're part of this plan.
Yep.
It's not like, so if you wanted to do, for example, the complete streets, or you wanted to study eliminating parking requirements, it's not like having it in the plan makes you go change the code tomorrow because we put it in the plan.
Oh, no, right.
It
that's
just gives
correct.
you the ability to
Right.
get funding because it's a priority in your.
And if that's a
actionable
recommended
items.
action, it means we're going to apply for a grant that will let us review for complete street expansion in the city. So
Yeah.
we'll get the review in first and see, what it comes up with. And that kind of, yeah.
And then ultimately, if we wanted to have a bonfire and jump around and be like, no, complete streets, that's when we would do it, right? That's
My general fear and concern
Mhm.
in my everyday life, I see how bureaucratic creep takes things that start off as what sound as pleasant goals we want to attain in the future. And then without a lot of direct public approval, there's
Mhm.
not some sort of referendum. There's not some, I'm voting for so-and-so for president based on this, but just because people who are civil servants and are frankly, as civil servants, not responsive always to public desires. They often bureaucrats and civil servants have their own agendas, which are different than what the voters want. I'm always nervous about things that can morph in, like, in then 20 years down, it's 2035. Well, you know, somebody approved this climate plan thing 12 years ago. Our hands are tied. We got to start doing these these complete streets programs because somebody approved this PDF document back in 2024. Those are things that make me nervous because I've seen that happen in other contexts.
Right. Well, it's not like the comprehensive plan, which is codified in zoning 410, right? You have to do this, it's the law, or these things will happen. This is a plan on how we can reduce vehicle miles traveled, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, how we can increase walkability in a community with recommended actions. Those are the goals. It's not going to be attached to any public law. So it's not legally enforceable, but we tend to work these into comprehensive plans. Okay, if we're going to redo this area, let's see if we can expand it to include safe bike lanes, So it helps to guide how the city will be developed, but it's not. You won't get a fine if you drive your car instead of Zoom, so.
In terms of the language, Chris, I think I agree with you that, kind of couching or smoothing off the edges of
Yeah.
require and eliminating parking requirements does sound better to me, but does that have a negative effect on our ability to get grants?
No. No, it doesn't, no.
Okay.
No. But it started conversations, so, which is what we wanted, yeah.
Dr. Berlin,
Yes.
that was a good lead in on grants. I was going to mention, when you talked about a full-time energy manager. I think that SUNY Broome has such a person that was funded by NYSERDA.
Right,
So it'd probably be funded through possibly NYSERDA. And you might have a way to sell that even with stronger, take what Kelly said and make that person responsible for efficiency
Mhm.
and grid stability.
right,
Um,
okay,
there's some justification for that.
you got it.
Also, the question I was going to ask about that same situation with changing the streets and whatnot is there some sort of wordage to be specific about how our city has changed to be such a college
Mhm.
city? And we have, even though they all say, we're not going to have a car, we're not going to have a car, these kids have cars.
Yeah.
And we are inundated with that. We came down last weekend to go to a hockey game. I haven't been in years. We drove around, the parking ramp was full. We literally had to drive back to the south side and take an Uber. We could not find a parking spot. We could not find a parking spot in the city of Binghamton. Had to drive and park our car across the river
Mhm.
and take an Uber. And we drove around. We were late for the hockey game. I'm like, there literally was not one parking spot. We looked on Flybird. It said there weren't any parking spots available. The ramp was full. It's just, it's hard. So you eliminate
Mhm.
some spots that are there, and we're already in such tough spots. So it's just like, is there a way to put that into the study to have them look at the individualities of our city?
Yeah, absolutely.
Kelly, obviously you should be biking or walking to the hockey game.
It was so cold. So cold.
There's the mass transit, take a bus. But no, the university has restrictions on which students can have vehicles. I don't think you can have a vehicle on campus, correct me if I'm wrong. For a freshman, you can't have a vehicle. All right, sophomore,
I think you're still not supposed to have a vehicle.
Okay, all right. We need the university to take some of that responsibility and work with the city and to say, if your students are living off campus and they're, I don't think you can live off campus as a freshman. You have to live on campus for 1 year, is that right? But work
Yes.
some restrictions into that with the city, that if you're bringing a vehicle to campus, you either have it housed on campus and you commute downtown, right?
And see where that could take away some of the stress from our city. and
Absolutely.
Have an allowability for some of these streets to be more,
Yep.
but there's just, I mean, where do we go with
Yeah.
what we have?
Tack on to what Chris said, about alternate forms of transportation. I think where practical is a a good qualifier to put on it. And I honed in on motor scooters when I read the report because I have a motor scooter and
Mhm.
I bought it for fun. I didn't buy it to be ecological or green or anything like that, but you know, as a side benefit, it gets 70 miles a gallon, which is great. You know, I bring it to these meetings sometimes, not tonight. And so basically it's like half the year that it sits in the backyard locked up with the cover on it and it's just too cold to ride it. Sometimes I bike. I wouldn't say this city is really friendly to biking on the street. I
No.
won't say it's hostile. It's kind of mid that way, you know, so. But again, this time of year, that's kind of off the table unless my goal is to be very, very cold. So it's kind of tough. So I think any amount of that happens is better than none. It's kind of a nice to have, but it's not going to be a year-round thing for obvious reasons. And I use the bus service sometimes. I live 1.5 miles from here, so sometimes I'll walk if it's not too cold. Because yes, the parking is crazy. We went out, we were gonna go to Craft, couldn't find parking, went to Little Venice because they had parking on site. But yeah, it was a night of a hockey game and,
Just as an aside, you can, did you try parking under here? It's open, go up Isabel Street and it's paid, I think. But I know when I'm leaving on a hockey night, there's a flock of cars coming in and I'm the only one going the other way. So, yeah. Yeah.
and part of the problem with the bus service is just the limited hours. So if you're going to a
Yep.
hockey game, you can get down at night and then you're probably Ubering back or walking or finding some other way. And the weekends are particularly problematic where I think on a Sunday, the last bus leaving the junction is probably at 5. So, you know, if you're relying on the bus service and trying to get around on a Sunday, you've got to do everything early or else
Yep.
you're left without transportation. So
That's part of the complete street plan is, there'd have to be more stops, because if you know, survey people, one of the reasons they don't take the bus is because there isn't a stop nearby. So you increase the number of bus stops, and then you'd also have to increase the number of buses or the number of routes. And so we'd have to hopefully get the county to work with us on that. So make it more easy, I guess, to take a bus, convenient. So.
probably some type of larger study is needed on their part to see, are the routes really going to meet the needs of the future? It works out great if you're a student going to or from Binghamton University. It seems like the two hubs are the University Union and downtown. And if you're going to one or the other or the west side, it's very, very easy. If you're going anywhere else,
Yep.
good luck to you. So.
It's hard
yeah.
to get, to get to Broome by bus, you have to go downtown, transfer, and then take another one. I don't think there's a direct bus to Broome Community College, which is, there should be. But, back to the scooters, you know, that is something that has been discussed, and it would make it easier for students to leave their vehicles on campus if they could then scoot around down here to the store or to wherever they need to go. I bought my daughter an e-bike because she should never drive a car. That child should never drive a car.
Those stand-up scooters can be problematic. We've been to college towns where the kids ride around on those where,
Mhm.
you know, they're not
yeah.
always paying attention. They're on
Yep.
the sidewalk. They're riding, where they shouldn't be riding. They just leave them everywhere. So instead of taking them to wherever the docking station is, they're supposed to be returned.
Yep.
They're just, you know, randomly left in the middle of the sidewalk somewhere.
Right.
So it becomes
And so
safety
part
concern.
of the plan looks at other cities that are doing just that and how they're collecting the vehicles. And it puts a burden on DPW. Basically, you have to hire and create a new branch of the city if it's going to be our vehicles. But that's part of what, you know, the goals would drive, you know, creating the need to conduct a study like that, these goals. And the recommended action wording might have been a bit, you know, severe, but the goals themselves if those are acceptable, we'll change the recommended actions, I'll change the goals too, if you can justify it. I mean, send me the comments you want to see. I want a plan that we can put in place and have it be actionable. So.
That was my next question. Would it be easier for you if we all just emailed you, like took this
Sure.
next week and just all emailed our thoughts together to you? Is that?
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
That'd be great, but I wanted to be able to just discuss the plan with you and see what the concerns were, overall. So. All right, let's see. Were there any other comments?
Just for the record, I do find the portion of Collier Street between the courthouse and the bank to be very confusing, and I'd prefer if that was not a
Yeah.
street.
Oh, I agree. I mean, we just need access into that parking lot where charging stations are, right? And then close the upper half to pedestrian. We used to have a farmer's market there every summer. I think we should go back to that. But somebody mentioned that, I don't want to keep you guys here forever, but I could talk about this forever. The downtown area is increasingly more residential. We haven't looked to see what the percentage is yet, but it's up there. We need to treat it like a neighborhood, which means that we need to change how vehicles enter and exit. We need to increase biking ability, walking safety. So we do need to make some changes to the downtown area, and just in terms of making it pedestrian friendly. There is an accident waiting to happen on the weekends. You've been down here on the weekends and students are just crossing the street, not even looking at the traffic signal or the, red hand doesn't mean walk, so you have to be extra vigilant. So, a car-free zone could be after 6 Friday through, I don't know, what, 8 Monday? I don't know. I'm just coming up with a time frame where you have limited vehicle access to parking areas, for emergency vehicle and for handicap, and then we have to have someone police it, so all of these are suggestions and recommendations that we would have to then get funding and have approved and then get council to adopt. So this is not going to be the final, but it leads people to consider other options and alternatives. So providing bus passes to municipal employees. Providing bus passes to low, moderate income individuals. Providing, scooters, all right, to low, moderate income individuals, bikes to people who have no vehicles and no other form of transportation. It just leads to a whole different way of thinking how we can allocate some of the funds we do have. And making it easier, access open and easier for everyone, not just for vehicles. I love my Nissan Maxima. I do. I'm not ashamed, but I walk to work as often as I can. I have a bus stop right in front of my house just about. I can bus if I want to, but I have those options available to me and not everyone does. So this is just a goal, a plan, just like the last one was a set of goals for us to keep in mind as we were modifying the zoning code or applying for grants. So, and that one did serve a good purpose. And this one will. But I might have been worded a touch draconian. I apologize. So this is where I need comments and feedback. Because after all the people reviewed it, this is the only comment and feedback we've gotten that's substantial. So, okay. And I think a few that were recommended by Tito to be removed were not removed, so I apologize. And those are a few that were raised here, so. All right, so the section on climate resilience, we haven't hashed that one through. We have basically two goals. Reduce flood impacts through expanded and increased community open space, keeping green space green, turning gray space into green where possible, and increasing community resource information. We're going to be doing a community rating system, CRS, to help reduce the cost of flood insurance, because that's going to be coming up. So let's see. Did anyone have any? So some of the actions, like for increasing open space, was developing an open space conservation plan, developing a floodplain and recovery management plan. We will be having another flood. We're doing our best to prevent it. We haven't had one, knock on wood. And we have put a couple initiatives in place that I don't know if contributed, but they certainly didn't hurt. Develop and expand on existing land use regulations, to protect open space and floodplains. We had a gentleman call the other day. I'm trying to remember who he was with. He wanted to know what the community relationship to the river was. And we really don't have one because of the flood walls. You know, you can't have build anything within 15 feet of a flood wall. And so we have the flood wall. There it is. And where we don't have the flood wall, we have access to the river. And I don't see that changing, right? But what we can change to reduce the impact of the river is what we consider to be open space and what we consider to be developable space. So if we have a contiguous section of open space that is not developed at the moment, we should identify it and set it aside as open space. Maybe not giving it a separate code, but creating a plan on how we're going to manage, develop, and protect that. So. All right. And we do have a website, and we're going to be adding more information to it. That's the climate action and resiliency page. Right now it's under planning, and as we get more information, we'll be putting it on to help people know what to do when there's a flood, a hurricane, when there's severe weather situations, where to go, what to do, who to call, that kind of stuff. So. All right. And I think, did we cover everything? Any questions?
So what would be the best way to get you comments? Do you want us to do it through Basecamp so we all
Yeah,
see
Basecamp's
everybody's?
good. I
everybody's
think that'd be
comments?
great. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Or you can email me if you don't want to put it on Basecamp,
okay.
jmburling, citybinghamton.com, gov.gov.
And you would like them by,
Well, based on the city council schedule, I think March 13th is the next time we could get it into a business meeting or workshop. Tito, do you have their calendar?
The next work session would be, we just had one yesterday, so it'd be the 19th.
Okay. But I'd have to get it to them.
You'd have to submit it to them on the 14th.
The 14th. Okay. What's today? The 6th?
Today's the 6th.
So we could do that, or we could target the end of February. When's the one after that?
March 11th?
Okay,
I'm sorry, 4th.
March 4th. All right. So comments in by the end of February, and we can address them, respond back, and then get it to council. What date do we have to get it to them by?
For
They
the
need it.
4th, you'd have to get it to them on the 28th.
Okay. So that's when I would have to get them the document. So that's a Wednesday. So Monday then would be the 26th?
The 26th.
Okay,
I can just
Mhm.
create a message on Basecamp,
okay.
and maybe, I don't know, do you guys need more than a week from today?
Right.
Maybe over the next 7 days, collect comments and on Basecamp.
That sounds good. The sooner, we get this, revised so that it's realistic and get it to council to review, then they have to provide comments and we make those adjustments as well. There's no real deadline pushing this. It's not grant-based. This was funded by the city. But we would like to, not let it sit, so. So is that acceptable? Oh, did you say a week, Tito?
Yeah, and I just put the message on
Okay.
Basecamp, so you all can just comment right on that message.
That's great. I was happy with end of February, so thank you. And be brutal. Well, be honest. Yeah, I know. I saw him smile. Okay,
All right.
all right. That's
Thank
it.
you.
I'm sorry you didn't get to see the presentation.
No, thank you.
J.M. Berling. Berling, right, at citybinghamton.gov. So.
All right, so that's everything listed for other business. Does anybody have any other business they want to talk about? All right. Should we introduce Bob?
This is Bob, our new attorney.
Hi, Bob.
Bob, do you want to give us a long description of your background and likes and dislikes?
I'll try and do a very quick one.
Yeah.
So I'm the new first assistant corporation counsel. I may come down here from time to time to fill in for Elizabeth, or if, for some reason we need a second set of eyes on something. So prior to joining the city, immediately prior, I worked for a company that did a bunch of contract negotiations. It was basically in-house counsel that was contracted out. And prior to that, I worked at Coughlin and Gearhart, where I split my time between the municipal law group and the business law group. So I have experience with zoning, planning, all the fun municipal stuff. So yeah, that's about it. I'm a transplant. I'm originally from Buffalo, New York. So go Bills. I don't know if anyone else is a Bills fan, but yeah, that's about it.
All right.
Member of COD.
Excellent. Elizabeth, did we ever do that with you I feel like you've started in like a whirlwind time. Brian left and then we were in the middle of that like super contentious couple of projects. Yeah. Do you want to give us your background? Okay. Well, what's your favorite football? Do you have a team? All right, Bill. Well, there you go. All right.
This is the Bills corner here.
All right. All right. Anybody want a motion to adjourn? By Chris, second by Joe, all in favor? All right, I think that's 8 in favor tonight, 7 or 0 opposed. All right, thank you.